All right, Brian, when you are ready.
Okay. Good evening. I would like to officially call to order the Monday, February 13th, 2023 meeting of the Bolton Conservation Commission. And pursuant to the extension of Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, this public meeting of the Town of Bolton Conservation Commission is being conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but the public can access this meeting while in progress by Zoom Video Communications, Inc. Members of the public attending this meeting virtually will be allowed to make comments if they wish to do so during the portion of the hearing designated for public comment by telephone, cell phone, or personal computer using Zoom. And as usual, our guidelines are please utilize the chat or raise hand function if you wish to address the board. Participants will remain on mute until they are addressed by the board, and participants are required to display their first and last names on their Zoom account. So that said, and as Rebecca unmutes a few people, we'll begin the evening per our tradition with a roll call vote. But just a quick mention to members of the public, we are having some issues this evening with muting and unmuting of participants. We are able to do it. It just takes an extra second. So apologize for that in advance. All right, so that said, if we could do a roll call of members in attendance. I am Brian Barabee.
Paul Branwald.
Lori Stevenson.
Bill Payne.
Jim Garrity.
Jillian Glasanos.
We get a full
And
house.
Rebecca Longball or Bachaya.
Right.
Nice.
You're gonna get it right one of these years.
I know.
All right. First up this evening, we had down a discussion on possible trail improvements. Is somebody from the Trails Committee presenting that, or you were presenting that, Rebecca?
We do have Drew here from the Trails Committee, so I will unmute him if he wants to speak to this at all. I will try to provide a summary to the best of my ability. So this is some of the information from your packet that you received prior to last meeting that we've scheduled some of the items to tonight. So some of our volunteers from the Trails Committee, including myself, have been receiving input or feedback over the past couple of years here and there about difficulty at different properties specific to navigation through it. The most recent prompted us to get together an informal subcommittee of the Bolton Trails Committee to just sit and talk through it and see what other organizations did to resolve this, how they mark their trails, and really the most prominent area that we've been receiving feedback on was Rattlesnake, as it's one of our largest properties, most complex, and has probably the most intersections. And that's really where people were having difficulty. And as you may or may not be familiar with, in the past, we have had a past land steward had installed and come up with mapping that was really directed to assist emergency response. And it was lettered and numbered intersections on a red reflective plaque that are on various trees throughout the property, particularly at intersections that would establish and label a section. Now that is very helpful, and I think that is still useful. However, the way those were marked when you're coming out of certain trails, you can't see one from all. And you're unsure of what trail you're coming off of because we don't have named or colored trails necessarily within the town. So that's what we looked at, the current conditions, which how we currently mark our trails on Rattlesnake are with the red, again, letter numbered intersection sign or segment name, or throughout each of the conservation properties, you'll see yellow plastic arrows that are nailed to a tree. And we try to keep a more standardized installation of these arrows, but realizing it isn't as standardized as we'd like. In addition, some of the trails come to an intersection where it's 4 or 5 trails coming into one. You're unsure of where to go to either create a loop back to the roadway or to get to your next trail to create a longer route. Those solutions that our group had come up with are, again, by reviewing other conservation properties, organization specifications, and realizing that the result would be to potentially create color-specific routes. So these routes we looked at, and I'll show you those visuals if you'd like in a minute. One of the volunteers in particular is on their bicycle often, and they're very familiar with heat maps. So they provided that information, and then we looked at, and then we considered connection to roadways or major trailheads as well. So looking at most heavily used trails that are used by those apps, and then those other criteria. The coloring, as you can see, I won't read through everything, but it basically establishes what it shows on the visual, separating it into about 5 different colors on Rattlesnake. Potentially, there is an option for 6 if there was a future trail that was put in. I will point out that the different markings, for instance, from green through orange are relatively the same. And again, that corresponds with the visual I'll show you in a moment. The yellow would be using what we have now in terms of the yellow markers, but adding a sticker for the Bob Horton Loop, because this is a very specific featured educational walk that is a relatively short walk. It's more user-friendly, coming from a major trailhead and looping through. Then the white Bolton Loop Trail segment, we would want to keep it that color, or using the Bolton Loop segment that basically consistently would go through and connect, and we'd be trying to use those markers. There are some, so we talked about standardizing how we were installing the yellow trail markers, or just trail markers in general. Making sure that we have at least 2 individuals. We're doing it during leaf out to ensure that it's visible from one blaze to another. When there's a long straight segment, maybe we would lessen that. So the different blaze approaches are suggested in the ask, basically, that we're asking for a little bit more direction from the commission is the following. One is a colored plastic sheet, match the existing yellow cutout markers, but with the color of the specified trail. Painting existing yellow markers with proper surface preparation, obviously, so that it's not just wearing away. Just trying to use the materials that we have. Again, painting corresponding to what I will show you in a minute. Painting blazes on trees. So that's something we see throughout ECR properties, or if you've hiked the Appalachian Trail or sections of it, that's typically what you see in the White Mountains as well. So that's an option, again, relative to the color. And then another option is the prefabricated trail markers with an arrow and color. Or the other thought we had that came up many times was for individuals who may be colorblind and trying to accommodate those user groups as well. And some will use different shaped markers to relay that you're on to someone who is not having that that visual discrepancy. Then you would see a red triangle, but someone else may just see the triangle. That was an option. Hatching was an option as well. And that was sort of a secondary application to the trail markers or consideration. And then we also have for future thought and sort of going forward, if the commission is willing to choose one of these ways of marking, is comfortable with how we're approaching it in terms of coloring or color coding the trails and the larger loops, then really the other property we'd be concerned with to try to accommodate something similar is Vaughan Hills for the similar reasons that I've already described. So I will pull up the other visuals, which were also in your packet. I'm going to zoom in here. Oops. So again, looking at, I'm not sure if that's as clear as it can be. So looking at the different loops, it's either a main loop or it's going to one of the main trailheads. So you see here, if you follow my cursor, you have a green trail that never crosses the blue loop, but it comes close. And then it leads over to another main trail, which is the Bolton Loop Trail, which cuts out onto Harris Road, Harris Farm Road, excuse me. We have the Bob Horton Loop Trail here shown in yellow. Again, not directly connecting to any other trail except by these other trails, but not connecting to a major route that we'd be coloring, excuse me. And then we have the orange trail shown here, which again is just showing another loop. So essentially the importance of this is, you know, you're on the loop, you're seeing the markers, you're seeing the color, so you know you're still on that same loop. And for instance, here, if you started on the green trail and you connected to the blue loop, it's easier to get back to that, because in the field, instead of just seeing yellow markers or happening upon one of the intersection markers that maybe you won't be able to see depending on where you're coming to in the intersection, if you're seeing a color, you can then walk, for instance, here a little bit further and you come across green, either understand that you need to turn around or that's the route that you'd like to continue in. So again, the goal of this is really just to improve upon the wayfinding experience throughout one of our most difficult properties and try to accommodate some of the feedback that we've received already and over the past couple of years. But more recently, again, this came up and it was Trails Committee who said, well, why don't we sit down and discuss this a little further and see if there's something we can do. So Mr. Chair, if you don't mind, I would like to open this up to Drew if you'd like to add anything.
I think that would be fantastic. Yes, please.
Oh, thank you. I think you did a really good job covering pretty much everything. Yeah, the heat map is there to show that the kind of the routes that were selected are the ones that we thought we would color code, and some of the minor trails we left out and didn't feel like we needed to have color everywhere. I guess the most similar property that I found that does something similar to what we're proposing is Noanet Woodlands. I don't know if I'm saying it right, but it's in Dover. It's a trustees of reservation property, I believe, or I don't think it's SVT, I think it's trustees. And they have intersection markers like we do, and also do the colors. So.
Right. I think when I first moved to town, I think that one of the first hikes I did here was Rattlesnake to check out, oh wow, we have all these trails. Let me check that out. Yeah. And yeah, that was before that initial attempt at actually marking out the trails. And like, I almost got lost out there. It was like, wow, this is absolute craziness. So I think it's gotten better over the years, but I love this proposal. I think it's past time. It still confuses people out there. I'll let other commission members weigh in. I was fine with the multiple colors. I'm used to that for certain trail systems, and the colors you chose are fairly the standards. It was interesting. I never thought about colorblind. Just never really crossed my mind until you had brought that up tonight with the different shapes along with the different colors. And I think if at all possible, that would be a great way. If we do a triangle, a square, a rectangle, and a circle, or and matched up with the colors. I think it would just be a smart thing to do for us. I never really considered it, and I feel bad about that now. But I'm fine with the trails. The 4 different sections that you propose all make good sense to me. I love that you balanced it out based on the heat map. So you actually went into it, based on actual data. I'm comfortable with the multiple different color markings or blazes. And I think I'm fine with any of those that were proposed, though I do like the idea again of the different shapes.
Just a quick follow-up,
ahead,
Brian,
Rebecca.
to that. And I know you're going to open it up to the rest of the commission, but in terms of using a plastic type material like we've used that we're nailing to a tree to apply, or a painted blaze, whether, and again, I'm including the potential for the shapes
Yeah.
in that as well.
Yep.
Or a metal sign that's nailed to a tree. Is there a preference for you? And again, I know we're going to open that up to the commission, but that
Yeah,
was something
again, I'll
you
put it out
left
to
out
other
of your
commission members.
review.
The painted blazes always seem easier, but I've been on a number of trails where they're very faded sometimes, and you're kind of remarking them every year, which is fine. I think some of those plastic ones that we're nailing in, it's kind of set it and forget it for several years. I mean, most of them are pretty hardy, so I just think it's probably cheaper to go with the paint, but I think long-term maintenance wise and everything, it's probably less of a headache to go with something like the plastic, something nailed on. But that's just me. And again, I can be convinced otherwise. But I'll open it up. Any other members of the commission want to give their initial thoughts on this project or comments?
Yeah, Brian, I think I really like the idea of the shapes along with the colors. Yeah, and I think it helps too, as you point them in a direction. For some of us who might be more challenged in following the trail sometimes, that helps too, especially during those intersections where it can get a little wonky.
Yeah.
So I really like that and agree with the something attached to the tree, I think seems more durable. I don't know which material is most durable. I mean, I guess plastic over metal, which might corrode, but I would think that would last longer than the paint.
Yeah. Other commission members?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in full support. I've had the same issue walking those trails, and I'm like, I love if you can have, color coding and understanding the length of each trail, because at least when I go on a hike, I kind of want to figure out the length of the hike before I start. So today I have to, honestly, use a GPS map app to figure out how to get around Rattlesnake. I can't. So I like all of these suggestions. I think color coded with probably plastic nailed on a tree with maybe different shapes is the most practical solution.
Okay. Jim or Bill or Lori, additional thoughts, comments?
Yeah, no, I like the idea. I think it's great. It would be great if we could kind of standardize and then kind of apply it across the rest of the trails in town. That would be great if we could do that.
And I'm fine with Brian.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. And standardizing across everything, set up a base of how every trail should be, like you said, same scenario, color code, so people know what they're getting into beforehand.
All right. So Rebecca, we can always do some sort of vote if you would like, but it would seem like we're fairly unanimous in the overall proposal of what we're trying to do with those particular trails, break out those 4 trails and mark them as such.
Okay.
As far as the type of marking goes, it seemed like our overall consensus was something along the lines of plastic, something more permanent.
Okay.
Um,
Something that's nailed on, that's in, that
Yeah.
also is the shape and the color.
And then shape and color was the other one that I think the majority of us would like to see both if possible.
And then, so I guess the follow-up would be in terms of next steps. One of 2 things, you can either make a vote to authorize those changes or approaches, or we'll continue to work on this. We'll find the source for the material to be used and basically what we're going to be utilizing, which obviously under the parameters we just did, and then coming back to the commission. And then at that time, you can see what's going to be nailed to the tree and say, and authorize that that's used and installed, versus
Yeah.
coming back twice. Because I think because it's going to be a new material that we'd be purchasing, or maybe we get it donated somehow, but I think you still need to approve that. And my hope would be, and I think when we discuss this, Drew's probably on the same page as me, that we hope it's similar to, and we use the same that we use for the markers we have now. But it's possible that maybe we find something better or something that's already in the shape we need, so we don't need to be cutting things afterwards. So what approach would you like out of those two, Brian?
I think that the second one, I guess, sounds the smart one, that to have our test turn approval, if you can bring in what the final products are going to look like, or
Okay,
and then give everybody one last chance just to sign off on it. So again, it's probably just a roll call vote at that point.
Yep.
But no, it's probably a good thing for us to see exactly what we are going to put in there before we do the final sign off.
okay. And Drew, does that sound reasonable to you, or do you have other thoughts?
That sounds fine. I mean, is a schematic of like the final shape okay, or do you want to physically hold the plastic in your hand and make sure like, I don't need to order a minimum amount, and like doing that might, right,
So-
require some
I
money to
gotcha.
do. Yeah,
So I think probably a schematic, and then just knowing where we're gonna order from and having like,
Mhm.
this is the source of material. That's what I'm foreseeing, Brian. I don't know if that's similar to what you were talking about.
It was, and I think that's fine. If they send along a sample, it's great, but we don't generally meet in person. But the schematics, Rebecca can send around, everybody have a chance to look at, and then hopefully it'll be a relatively quick item where people can speak now or forever hold their piece. But yeah, I think that's probably best. We wait to see what actually is going to be ordered before we finally approve it all.
Sound good, Drew?
yeah, that sounds great. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. No, thank you guys for doing
everyone.
this. This is great.
No problem.
Rebecca, is there anything else that we haven't touched on in this discussion, or are you good if we move on to Whitcomb?
I am good as far as this discussion goes. I don't know, Drew, are we good or are we missing things? Good,
All
okay,
right.
thanks. I know that, I'm sorry, the mute thing is not. Yes, we can move on to Wickham.
Okay. In that case, the Bolton Conservation Commission will now continue the public hearing under Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Bolton Bylaw, Chapter 233, to consider a notice of intent for 19 Whitcomb Road, DEP file number 112-0723. I'm trying to remember, I know last time we had discussed, put out some initial questions to them. We're kind of writing up the order of conditions. Am I forgetting anything with this, Rebecca, or is there an update?
So I had drafted the order of conditions and it should be in your packet. And we left it fully open instead of closing and voting, because they were submitting revised plans that showed what the commission requested from last time, which was the drip edge along the rear portion of the proposed garage, which they have done. They did submit that to my office in time for the last meeting, and with a narrative that just described that and the maintenance of that drip edge.
Yeah, I'm just looking through them now.
Mhm.
So that said, with their new plans and the narrative you built into the order of conditions, I was comfortable with it as it stands right now. Did any other commission members, any thoughts, comments, changes, edits, or questions? seeing any. Of course, everybody could be muted, so this works out great.
I
Like,
ran through and unmuted
know.
everyone, Brian, as you were
everybody is
saying
more than
that.
capable of raising
Or
their
tried
hand,
to.
yeah. Sorry, what was I gonna say? Any members of the public here tonight to comment on this specific item? And again, taking a look. Not seeing any.
We only have the property owner present with us.
I can ask the property owner if they want to make any additional comments or anything, any additional questions they have. But I'm guessing that's maybe a no.
No, I think, like I said, the drip edge was pretty well defined on the plan. I don't know if all of you had the chance to take a look at
Yeah.
it, so, as long as nobody has an issue with the design of that.
Yeah, no, I did not. Any other commission members have comments on that? Everybody got their packets, right? Okay. All right. Rebecca, do you have any unanswered questions and or comments currently?
No.
Okay. In that case, unless, again, any commission members have any comments, questions? And not seeing any, I'm going to make a motion that we close the public hearing for 19 Whitcomb Road, DEP file number 112-0723. Do I hear a second for closing?
Second.
All those in favor for closing, starting with Paul,
Aye.
Lori,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
Jillian,
Aye.
and Rebecca, I'm an aye as well. All right. I'd like to make a motion that we issue an order of conditions for 19 Whitcomb Road, DEP file number 112-0723 as drafted and submitted at this evening's meeting. Do I hear a second for issuing the orders?
Second.
All those in favor, starting with Paul,
Aye.
Lori,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
and Rebecca. Oh, Jillian, I'm sorry.
Aye.
And Rebecca, I'm an aye as well.
Thank you.
I'm not used to this full commission thing. It throws me.
Okay, so Mitchell, I will follow up with you tomorrow via email and just give you some updates on what you can anticipate. Being that when you can look for the permit, where you would like it mailed to, and just asking some follow-up questions related to that. And you can anticipate that email coming tomorrow.
All right, thank you. And I'd like to thank you and all the members of the commission for your time, obviously coming out for the site visit. Like I said, I think I'm happy with the end result, and I think, it's not a huge burden on me for put that drainage in, so I have no issues with that at all.
Excellent. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
And good luck with the project.
Yeah.
All right. Rebecca, are you good to continue?
Yes.
And did they hear back from MIPA?
Not yet, so we're still continuing that. It's
Yep.
anticipated that we're going to be continuing this probably until about April, but we're
Yeah.
leaving it just for documentation and to note that it's not that they aren't supplying information, it's that we're waiting on MIPA review.
Um,
And
20
I will say, I
ahead.
did start the conversation internally about the open space that the applicant had asked. I still haven't gotten a concrete answer of what pathway is best, but I will be continuing on with that.
Excellent. Well, thank you. All right, 21st, our next meeting, correct? And
Yes, it is. If we can get a quorum for that date, I would highly recommend that we meet that date because the other items had been advertised for it. However, I know at least one member is unable to make it. So if we have to, we'll move it to the 28th. But again, because everything's already been advertised for the 21st, that is the preferred date.
what's what's our first open time?
7:30.
7:30. Okay. In that case, I'd like to make a motion that we continue the public hearing for the notice of intent for South Bolton Road until our next public meeting, Tuesday, February 21st at 7:30 PM. Do I hear a second for continuing?
Second,
All those in favor, starting with Paul,
Aye.
Lori, building that suspense.
I had to unmute her.
There we go. Sorry. Hi.
Thanks, Lori.
Okay, Bill,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
Jillian,
aye.
and Rebecca, I am an I as well.
Perfect. Thank you.
It looks, I was just said, the rest aren't public hearings, so it looks like we can take them in any time frame, right?
Yep.
Is there an order you would prefer to go through these, Rebecca?
I mean, we can just run down the way they're listed now.
That works for me as well.
Stay in order.
So could you give us an update on the request for an extension of the order of conditions for 164 Green Road?
Yes, the property owner, Peter Callahan, came in with a letter from his engineer, Connor Nagel, about the project that they had permitted prior to the pandemic. The pandemic granted an extension that will expire the end of this month. So he was within the 30-day period to request the extension order of conditions. So that has not expired. It has not lapsed as of yet. But they are requesting to extend the order of conditions for this. If you recall, this was an addition off of their existing single-family home located at 164 Green Road. They have some blueberries in between the existing home and the perennial stream and wetland floodplain, basically the resource areas on site to the east of their property. So no work has started at this time. And so they're just asking for an extension. The bylaw only allows an extension of up to 1 year at a time. The commission has the ability under the Wetlands Protection Act. It allows up to 3 years. However, again, the bylaw only allows up to 1 year. I don't have an approximate timeline as far as when they think this will be completed or started, but they are trying to get it going once they're obviously, if they're able to get the extension granted.
I was going to ask, was there a reason why work hadn't begun? I don't know that they need to give one for, but.
No, it was because of the pandemic, and then because of financial implications because of the pandemic and materials and material cost rather. So it was a few different things.
All right. I mean, I'll open it up to commission members. I have no problem extending it basically. If the bylaw only allows for a year, I would think it's probably best just to do a 1 year extension, whereas we can always entertain another extension if they don't have a chance to start it or whatever the reason, or we can continue to grant extensions. But I hate to do it for 3 years under the Wetlands Protection Act and 1 year under the bylaw, and then we're still coming back to it. So I guess my initial thought is to grant a 1 year extension and to let them know that for whatever reason, if they need to extend again, to come back, but 1 year is kind of what we're allowed to give right now. Other commission members have thoughts, feelings?
Sounds reasonable.
Okay. All right. So Rebecca, would this be a roll call vote?
It would still be a vote. So you'd be making a motion to issue an extension for 1 year from the date of expiration.
Okay. So in that case, I'd like to make a motion that we extend the order of conditions for 164 Green Road DEP file number 112-0685 under both the Wetlands Protection Act, Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Bolton Bylaw, Chapter 233, for an additional 1 year from the date it was set to expire. All those in favor of this extension, please say aye, starting with Paul,
Aye.
Lori.
Hi,
Please unmute Bill if you could. And Bill,
Aye.
Jim,
Thanks, Bill. Jim's, okay. He gave a thumbs up. I just unmuted him.
Aye.
Thanks.
call that an aye, Jillian,
Aye.
and Rebecca, I'm an aye as well.
Great, thank you.
All right.
Who had that second, Brian? I'm sorry, I missed that.
I don't think there was a second.
There wasn't, yeah, you're right. I didn't ask for a second, sorry.
That's okay. Do we want to, who wants to second that?
I'll second it.
Okay,
Thank you,
thanks,
Lori.
Lori. It's funny, I was gonna write you by mistake first. And great, okay. Do you want me to run through the other items quick, Brian?
If you would be so kind, please.
So with the enforcement order update, this is just keeping these items on because they are ongoing items. The first two, 100 East End Road and 3 John Powers Lane, are on the agenda still relative to revegetating and then just proving that it's revegetated come springtime. I anticipate those will be taken off and in compliance once we see that growth come spring. And then Century Mill Estates, we're just finalizing the documents we're receiving back from our peer review and making sure that they've incorporated everything that we've sent them. And then we will potentially consider continuing fines for Century Mill Estates based on those violations. This item, so the vote Derby Field renovations grant application letter of support. There is an internal group of department heads working towards different grant applications for Derby Field renovations. This grant in particular that we're looking at is the MVP grant, so it does incorporate climate resiliency practices. And that's what we're attempting to do, and to make sure that the renovations are inclusive of our other goals within the town, including nature-based solutions and climate resiliency. So that's just an ask of the commission vote to
Issue a letter.
authorize sending and issuing a letter of support for that particular grant application.
So I'll put it out there to commission members. Anybody have a strong reason why you think we should not issue a letter of support for this, or anybody want more information regarding Derby Field renovations? I'm not seeing any. I'd like to, well, I suppose it could be a roll call vote, but I'd like to make a motion that that the commission issues a letter of support to the various entities working on Derby Field renovation grants. Do I hear a second for issuing a letter of support?
Second.
All right. All those in favor, starting with Paul,
Aye.
Lori,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
Jillian,
Aye.
and Rebecca, I'm an aye as well.
Thank you so much. And then, so the next item we have is to the commission to consider a vote of to accept a donation from the Bolton Conservation Trust in the amount of $2,500 for the Conservation Commission maintenance projects at Bower Springs Conservation Area. This was brought up after our most recent budget discussion with advisory. The trust had a meeting the next day, or the next evening rather, and sought that they really wanted to contribute to the Bower Springs property and reduce our line item by $2,500 for land maintenance, but again, specific to the Bower Springs items. So this is just the first step, is if the commission wishes to accept the donation of funds, then you can take that vote this evening. And then it will go to the select board, because the select board has to accept any donations. So just to understand what that process is going to look like.
And can I add quickly, any, I hate to say strings attached, but basically it just has to, it's limited to use at Bowers Springs. And it's the commission or the trail committee basically has the choice of how the money would be used. As long as it's
No.
used for Bowers Springs maintenance, I guess.
Yeah, so you're correct, and I'm going to clarify a little bit further. So this is
Sure.
not for the Bolton Trails Committee. This
Okay.
is specific to either the line item under land maintenance, which covers the Bowers Springs project for removal of woody vegetation along the earthen dam as part of that. I don't know the
Phase?
summary
yeah.
the summary name will give it, but basically trying to bring back grading the earthen dams, removing the woody vegetation so that we're not degrading that area further. So part of that project, or the contracted amount for the mowing and maintenance of Butternut and Bowers, that contracted work, but obviously focused on the Bowers portion.
Yeah.
So those are the two projects that it can contribute toward.
Okay. And that's, and again, the only, and I trust the trust, you know, I think they're wonderful and they do excellent work. I just, sometimes philanthropic gifts come with the expectations of, we're going to tell you what you're going to work on and when you're going to work on it and what kind of fill you're going to bring in, and just to make sure it's, yeah, it's a straight donation and we'll use it.
Yep,
Okay.
and again, it's for the town's property.
Yep.
So other outside entities can't direct what we're doing unless we're contracting them to do the work. Additionally, though, Brian, I will mention, I think the only string, if you can consider that, is
Sure.
they did just want to be recognized for making this contribution, which I think is appropriate. So if it contributes toward the project that's trying to bring back the earthen dams and restore some of that, we'll put it on the outreach information. In addition, putting it on information when we ask for
Sure.
people to provide estimates for mowing work, to say this is what's contributing toward it as well.
Yep.
I think it's, for me, I think that's a reasonable.
No,
ask.
that was to say, I'm
But
used
that
to,
is, yeah, thank you for
I'm used to that.
sparking
Yeah.
that. Yep.
Yeah, no, that's more than reasonable. It's one of those things we'd do, even if they didn't ask. It's a thing we would probably try to do anyway. So I have no issue with accepting this gift. I think it's great. And again, I think it's wonderful for them to offer. As a town taxpayer, I am doubly grateful. And I have no issue recommending that the select board accept this gift. Any members of the commission have different thoughts or strong thoughts, feelings one way or the other?
I just have a procedural question, I guess, because I thought that we were not allowed to solicit donations. So how does this?
Solicit, correct. Accept
Okay,
is different.
accept
yeah.
difference. Okay.
Yeah, and to further, so that is a great clarification
Yeah.
that Brian just provided. Additional, like the Bolton Conservation Trust in this example came to us and said, you know, we sat with this and we wanted to discuss this at our meeting tonight, explicitly for Bowers Conservation Area, or they had also asked about the Mass Trails grant and what the match requirement was for that. So I provided that information to them. At that time, there was no, we'd really like this amount, anything like that, so that they have the ability, whatever they're considering, they can offer it without any consideration of the commission saying, this is the amount we want, or this is the amount we'd like donated. So to Brian's point, yes, the commission has the ability to accept, or rather recommend acceptance, because the select board accepts the donations and gifts, or authorizes it rather. But we cannot be asking for donations, soliciting them. Further, we also have where these funds will go is they will sit in, sorry, something happened. They will sit in the Conservation Commission's gift account, which is separate from the Conservation Fund. It's separate from our other line items. So it will be specifically for Bowers and tagged that way for the project so that the accountant and I can track it. In addition, that does not get returned to the general fund at the end of the year. So say at the end of this fiscal year, because hopefully it will be turned over prior to the end of this fiscal year. If it's used in next fiscal year, it carries over instead of our line items, which go back to the general fund if they're left unexpended.
Okay, thank you. Very helpful.
Yeah, I was happy. I didn't know that last part too, and I meant to ask that a year. It came up like two years ago on something else, and I never really circled back around. But thank you, appreciate hearing that. I was always wondering if we lost it or if somebody lost it, but it does stay with the line. That's nice.
Yep.
All right. Other thoughts, comments, or concerns, questions from conservation members, Concom members? Seeing any, I'll throw it out to members of the public too. If there's any member of the public here tonight that wants to comment on this or have a question about this.
We're the only ones here, Brian.
I think I say I got to change my view so I can see everybody's in the room. There we go. But you know, they could be listening on their phone. No, I suppose we know. So yeah, I'll just stop. So all of that said, I'd like to call a roll call vote for the commission to recommend to the Bolton Select Board to accept the $2,500 gift for Conservation Commission maintenance projects at Bowers Springs Conservation Area. All those in favor, please say aye. In favor of accepting the gift or recommending that we accept the gift, please say aye. Starting with Paul.
Aye.
Lori.
Aye.
Bill.
Aye.
Jim.
Aye.
Jillian.
Aye.
And Rebecca, I'm an aye as well.
Wonderful, thank you. And if you are ready, you can certainly consider the minutes.
Yep. I know I can vote. I'm not sure. I think if members have had a chance to look at the packet, because I'm trying to think if there's some that people shouldn't vote on, depending if they weren't present at those particular meetings. I think I got both of those in. And I didn't have any edits, changes, or anything along those lines. Did anybody else have any edits regarding the minutes, or anybody else need more time to read through the minutes? And not hearing any, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the minutes for our January 10th, 2023 and our January 24th, 2023 meetings as drafted and presented at this evening's meeting. Do I hear a second for approving those minutes?
Second.
All those in favor, starting with Paul.
Aye.
Lori.
Aye.
Bill.
Aye.
Jim.
Aye.
Jillian.
Aye.
And Rebecca, I am an aye as well.
Wonderful, thank you. These next couple items I'll try to run through quickly. The MVP project, that was going to take another minute, I think, but not too long. So the Bolton Trails Connectivity Improvement Project, this is the Mass Trails grant that we received. The initiation phase with the grant program has been complete. So right now I am just tracking any time spent. We talked about it at the Bolton Trails Committee meeting at the beginning of the month. And then I have been proceeding with coordination and further planning of trail work days, reviewing material costs, and just making sure that there haven't been any changes since the original application, and making sure that we're still within budget, or if there's areas where we can find items that are priced better potentially, but similar quality material, making sure that we're taking that opportunity to do so. Are there any questions on that item? Okay. We have an upcoming trail walk next week, I believe, February 21st. So we tried to make it during school vacation week. That should say 12 p.m., not 12 a.m. So that will be
Owl Prowl
minutes. Yeah, which we should organize one of those as well. But so 12 p.m. February 21st. We'll be starting at the Vaughan Hills Trailhead at Moen off of Vaughan Hills Hill Road, and we'll be going to North Peak and back. So this is part of the summit series that we're trying to focus on this year, going to some of Bolton's highest points and the trails that feature them. So if you're available, please feel free to attend. And then the opportunities, the volunteer land steward position is still open. And we are working on the open space and recreation plan update. We had our first meeting, and our next meeting is going to be the last Thursday of the month. And we're going to be making some progress on that. So for the Nashua River Communities Resilient Lands Management Project MVP follow-up, MVP program follow-up, at the last meeting we had, so at the joint meeting with Clinton Concom, we had a presentation by our consultants. At our last meeting of Bolton Conservation Commission, we met with the consultants just with our board and our commission and reviewed some of that and gathered some feedback and insights from you all. Since then, I'm just wondering if anyone had any further insights. I'll be sending out an email tomorrow to just prompt that again, but we're really looking for final comments to be by the end of the week. And then once we produce the regulations that are tailored towards Bolton, then obviously we'll be taking that on our own because it'll be outside of the scope of the consultants, and we'll be taking it to the select board and our council for the town to review and just ensure that they agree, even though we do have Nathaniel Stevens, who is an attorney working on those as part of our consultant team. So did anyone have any additional comments or general concepts that they wanted included in the regulations or bylaw updates specific to climate resiliency? A lot of the items we talked about were specific to stormwater, clearing. I know a big one as well that Brian had brought up is notification to the public and just public information, education about, you live in Bolton, you probably have wetlands in your backyard or maybe your front yard. In addition to just extending or altering what the commission regulates under our bylaw specific to riverfront area, no touch areas. So I will open it up to you all to see if you had any other feedback. Again, I'll be sending an email prompt as well, but really by the end of this week, we'd like to have those comments.
I know personally, I don't have any additions at this time, but if you send around an email too, I will take another look. But other commission members, additions, comments, questions? Seeing any, so I think we're kind of comfortable where it stands right now.
Okay. That's fine with me. And like I said, I'll send around the prompt tomorrow morning. So if you have time on your lunch or anything to take a look, and even it doesn't have to be specific verbiage. It can just be concepts like I was just naming off before. It doesn't have to be too specific. But this is really helpful for our team to be able to really dial in while we have these resources with us during this project. And then it makes the second part of reviewing with council and combing through it a little bit more much easier because most of the work's already done. So I encourage you and implore you to take advantage of that while we have that resource. But with that, I don't have any further updates at this time.
Okay. Does any other commission members have any new business? Oh, yeah, actually, I do have a question, Rebecca. And sorry, I'll try to make it quick, but it's weird. I usually try to follow what the select board is going to be discussing and stuff just to see if our stuff pops up, and every once in a while I do. And somehow I totally missed the discussion on the state property that abuts Taggart and next to the soccer fields. Do they have a second meeting set up? And the reason I ask is I would love to go and give comment on it. It's killing me that we don't have Emily Winter there anymore, who really understood this project as a whole. Some of the comments in the paper, and of course the paper's not always 100% accurate, scared the life out of me. Yeah, I mean, I don't know that they realize how many people have worked on this project for how long. waiting for this piece to fall into place, and I'd hate to waste that. Does it make sense, or, and again, I could put it out to commission members too, for us to, I'd rather just go to the meeting and talk, but I would happily send them a letter from the Conservation Commission saying, this is part of a big long-term plan that we have been working on and have already made purchases to Taggart as part of this. And that, you know, it's, I'm sure they recognize it, and I'm sure others around town may let them know, but again, I caught it in the paper and I was like, geez, I don't know how I missed that. Usually I'm pretty good at catching what they're going to be talking about. And
Yeah.
it
So-
just seemed like they were missing the larger point of this piece, and it scared me. So I just wanted to make sure. like,
Yeah.
we can discuss again, or we can send a letter in support.
So right now, where it stands, I didn't read the paper in the article, but I did watch part of that meeting. And before the meeting, actually, I had inquired whether or not they wanted me to be present. And the reason why, and of course, always welcome to, is the response, and that's fine. This particular presentation by the state was just giving a presentation about the properties and what they felt the next steps were. It was not, to my understanding, a vote to accept or authorize
Sure,
any
yeah.
movement forward. So my understanding is, yes, there will be another meeting, but I'm not sure where they are even in that process. So I think the best way to approach it is to contact the town secretary, who can communicate to the town administrator. I will as well.
Sure.
But contact the town secretary and ask what their approximate timeline is, so that you can just keep an eye on when those meetings might be.
Yeah.
Um,
And usually I catch
definitely-
them. I don't know how I missed it, but I just did.
Yeah, but definitely providing, if you have any comments up front, providing those in writing, I think is helpful, so that if it is a missed meeting again, or if maybe it's just a presentation, the select board may feel that it's necessary to bring those concerns up at that time and relay that to the state, or vice versa.
Yep.
So that would be my suggestion, but again, certainly contacting the town secretary and asking where it is in the process, and if they think it's going to be on an upcoming agenda, or if it's going to be a couple months.
Yeah.
But I do know with the two different properties, one, as you're aware, they did bring into compliance with the temporary spillway, but they are looking to do some other restoration work there prior, and the town, to my understanding, with the select board or the town administrator, it wouldn't make sense to acquire that prior to that restoration work. And then the other parcel is primarily floodplain and resource area. It does have an agricultural use, so there's potential to maybe replicate that use. But that's just some of the information that we have at this time.
Do you know, last question, but do you know offhand, is conservation land, for whatever reason, considered municipal use if it's open to the public for passive recreation? And the only reason I asked it is there was two different prices. One, if we wanted to buy the land so we could do things with it in the future, and one if we wanted to buy the land from municipal property, which would be cheaper. And basically saying we would just keep it from municipal land, which again, I thought was the plan all along, was this was conservation land.
Yes. Well,
Um,
so
I should say all along.
there's-
But
Yeah,
that was, I guess, my one question is, would that cheaper price be applicable if we were going to use it for conservation land?
So for any municipal use, whether that be building a town structure, a town playground, like a structure could be a playground, it could be anything, using it as conservation property, recreational property, as long as we're not using it and then selling it,
Sure.
that's the sort of line that's drawn. So similar to like the 4.5 acres of Taggart was land banked
Right.
for town use only. So the town can't sell that off, but they can use it for another municipal use. So I believe it's a similar type of definition for what you're asking in terms of
Okay.
if it's for municipal use or not. And I don't foresee that land from the desktop assessments that I've done, I don't foresee it being valuable in any other use aside from municipal unless it was by an abutting property. So,
All right, I'm sorry, I just, again, I don't know how I missed that one. I was like, oh, shoot.
good questions.
Anyhow, so that's it. Anybody else have any other new business? Everybody want to just hang out and talk for another hour or so?
Well,
We like to
you-
go to at least 9, come on.
Oh, yes.
Brian, you caught my attention. What happened to Emily? She's no longer part of the select board?
She, yeah, she had to resign from the select board. She just had a lot of other things going on in life in the world. Yeah, which was unfortunate. And she couldn't give it basically the attention she wanted to give it and decided to step aside.
But we all miss her.
We
was
do miss
no-
her.
It
Yes,
was no
miss her terribly.
bad reason
Yes,
from the town. She had some personal
Yeah.
things.
Okay.
yeah.
And then the select board, do they operate with only 2 members then for now?
Yes, yep, so quorums too.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, any other questions, comments? In that case, I'd like to make a motion that we hereby adjourn the Monday, February 13th, 2023 meeting of the Bolton Conservation Commission. Do I hear a second for adjourning?
Second.
All right, all those in favor, starting with Paul,
Aye.
Lori,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
Jillian,
Hi.
and Rebecca. I am an I as well.
Wonderful.
Thank you all very much. Thank you, Rebecca, and we'll see everyone eventually.
Have a happy
Have a good night.
Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
Take care.